It's election time all over Europe. In Ireland, as well as the elections to the European Parliament, there are local elections. So here's the question. Is there, and should there be, a Catholic vote? Should Catholics, in making their decision on how to vote, take into account the moral teachings of their church? It's worth thinking about before casting your vote. Consider this for a moment. The mainstream political parties in Ireland enforce their teachings, the party's ideology, ruthlessly. Challenge the leadership, challenge the received wisdom, and you're out, purged. If a TD or minister were brave enough to say, and just a few have been, I simply cannot accept in conscience the abortion regime you want to enforce in the country, they'd be out of the cabinet and out of the party quicker than you could say conscience. It's accept our teaching or you're out. And it's what's happened, of course. It's what's happened. There's no question of respecting a politician's conscience, as you do, for example, in Germany. So, doesn't the Catholic Church have the right to set out its values and its teachings, which it believes to be in the best interests of individuals, families, and the country? And to ask those who assert that they are, in fact, Catholic, to vote in accordance with these teachings. That seems reasonable. After all, why would you want to be someone who proclaimed themselves Catholic and then voted directly contrary to the absolutely core moral teachings of your church on life, marriage, and the rights and responsibilities of parents, and on other issues? Because, and this is the key point, these are the platform on which every important social policy rests, from access to healthcare to the eradication of homelessness as a blight on our country, from reversing the decline of rural communities to rejecting the militarization of Europe. So forget the glossy political promises and the softly spoken pleas to emotionalism. It does come down to character, integrity, and authentic political values. So look at the mainstream parties and ask whether their values bear even the slightest resemblance to those of the men and women who founded them, and for a purpose greater than political power and control. Some people say, and they actually seem to believe, that it's all very well being a Catholic, providing, of course, you take no account of it in your politics. But that's nonsense. Gospel values are, above all, a guide to living, loving, working, and sharing. Above all, sharing with those who are poor and disadvantaged, and that's the track record. Check out the 10 Commandments, which Christ conflated into two: love God through the love of your neighbor. Check out the Beatitudes, the incomparable wisdom of living ethically in community. Check out the social teachings of the Catholic Church and compare them with the tyranny of Marxism and the idolatry of market capitalism. And check out the sacraments into which our children are baptized and grow through the milestones of life and relationships towards God. And then compare these teachings to the largely self-serving rhetoric and the bullshit and the auction politics that characterize the manifestos and posters of most of the mainstream parties in this and in the coming general election. These are the same parties who once proclaimed Christian values before they were ideologically colonized, and who now want to push the Catholic vote and voters into exile, though they will, of course, still be doing their own little bit of colonisation, aka electioneering, around their local parish church, whose cross they would want to remove from every hospital and every school in the country they controlled. Well, there are voters who welcome Ireland's new aggressively secular culture and will vote accordingly, and they have the right to do that. And there are those who will always vote for the party, even though it has flipped its values 180%. And then there are those who affirm that Catholic voters have values that are universal, that are the best and the most radical and the most beautiful because they are wholly inclusive. They are there for all of mankind. And they have a place in the public square. And I guess as Catholics, we have a responsibility to affirm them, to listen carefully to what they're saying. Whatever about the mainstream parties, there are independent men and women standing in this election who have something to say greater than a dialectic on power. There are small parties and these independents who have a new mission that can reanimate Irish politics. And wouldn't that be great?